Hi everyone, Paul here from familywheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And I think I've got a bit of confession to make here with you this week, and that's that I might be in love with the latest generation of Mazda vehicles. I've had a chance to drive quite a few of them at this point, and they've got fantastic drive feel. They are beautifully appointed, really excellent bang for your buck, and it should stand to reason that the company's flagship sedan, the Mazda6, should be no different. Now, we've had this same generation of the Mazda6 for a few years at this point, but there are some pretty major changes for 2018. Both interior and exterior lines have been tweaked. We also have seen a shuffle in the trim levels a little bit with better standard equipment on the base level trim, as well as the introduction of this signature trim, which really piles on the luxury. So let's walk you through all these various changes and see if this love affair with Mazda continues this week here on Family Wheels. Well, the base price on the Mazda6 has crept up by $500 for 2018, but you are getting way more for your dollar at that price. Before we even get to the features, this is easily the best looker in this mid-size sedan class, with new, more aggressive bumpers. We have a larger front grille up front. You put it alongside the likes of the Honda Accord, the Kia Optima, the Camry, or the Passat. I mean, they're not bad looking cars either, but this runs circles around them. Now, normally this is where I'd throw the caveat on of, you know, looks are subjective, everyone's got a different idea of what looks good. I don't think that's the case here in the Mazda 6. It just looks good. Full stop. And new for 2018, we now have a turbocharged power plant to back up these sportier looks on the higher level trims. But first, let's just start off with the basics here. Gone is the previous base GX trim. Instead, it starts at the GS for 2018 at an even $27,000 Canadian. That puts it just a hair above the starting price of the real big shooters in this class, the Camry and the Accord. But for that price, you're now getting LED auto leveling headlights as standard, larger 17-inch alloy wheels, dual zone climate control, heated front and rear seats, something you really don't see on base trims very often. Also standard, a power driver's seat, push button start, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, which sounds an alarm as you're backing out of a parking space when something is about to cross your path. We've also got smart city braking on board that will automatically brake for you at speeds below 30 kilometers an hour if it seems like you're not going to brake in time. That is a lot of good stuff for just 27 grand. And the next trim up, the new GSL trim, piles on more luxury features, things like leather, a sunroof, and a heated steering wheel, as well as more of those autonomous safety features like lane keep assist, adaptive cruise, and forward collision mitigation braking at higher highway speeds. And then there's the GT, which used to be the top of the line trim. That gives you 19-inch rims, an 11-speaker Bose sound system, ventilated front seats, a heads-up display projected onto the windshield in front of the driver, Mazda's in-house navigation software, driver's seat memory, and a power passenger seat, among other things. And then to top things off, there's the addition of this new signature trim. Napa leather seats, copious dollops of ultra suede on the dash and in the door panels, a 360-degree parking camera, parking sensors, a 7-inch digital instrument cluster in front of the driver, and just really nice finishes all throughout the cabin. So at $38,800, yes, it is almost $12,000 more expensive than the base trim, but Mazda wants its top-of-the-line trims like this to nudge away from the mainstream competition and instead give luxury buyers a compelling, value-packed alternative to bumping up into an Acura or a Lexus or an Infiniti. And when you compare this to those higher-level competitors, the Mazda 6 really is keeping up with a lot more money left in your jeans. This whole strategy of straddling these markets seems to be working for the company as well, because for the first few months of 2018, the best-selling trim in the Mazda 6 is this signature trim. The lowest selling trim, by the way, is the base GS trim. So it's interesting to see how sales on this car are panning out. But despite this push into the luxury segment, there are some things that you might be missing. There's no panorama sunroof, no auto start-stop that turns the engine off when you're sitting at a stoplight, no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto on on the infotainment system. But Mazda is rectifying that this coming fall, and if you've already bought one of these new Mazda 6 models, you'll be able to update the infotainment system as well. There's a patch for that. But unfortunately, that is not where the shortcomings on this infotainment system end. It is really nice to have an 8-inch display as standard on all trims, but it's a tricky interface to use. It's a touch screen when you're at a standstill, but then you have to use this dial once you're on the move. Even simple tasks like changing the radio station are way more complicated than they need to be. It's not super intuitive. I'm finding my eyes off the road way more than I'd like. And then there's the standard backup camera and the optional 360-degree parking camera here in this signature trim. The image on these cameras is super grainy, the worst I've seen in a while, which limits their usefulness. And then speaking of outward visibility, there's also one great big blind spot over my right driver's shoulder, just behind the rear passenger there. But aside from those little nitpicky things, the Mazda 6 is a joy to drive. The two base trims have a 2.5-liter non-turbo 4-cylinder engine. It puts out 187 horsepower, and it's certainly going to be the more efficient choice. It has cylinder deactivation, which means that it can cruise along with just 2 cylinders operating when you don't need that extra power. And that means that you can get fuel economy down to about 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers with that engine when you're just cruising on the highway. But if you want 40 more horsepower and a bit more excitement, Mazda has now crammed the same 2.5-liter turbocharged engine that we see in the much larger, much heavier CX-9 SUV. You can get this in all but that base level trim of this car, and it is an eager co-pilot. With the exception of aggressive off-the-line performance, these 4-cylinder turbos that so many companies are moving toward need a slightly more gradual foot when you're accelerating, but once you do get up to about 20-25 kilometers an hour, that turbo lag melts away and it really does want to go. But the thing with these turbos is that if you get them spooling up on you all the time, your fuel economy is going to really suffer. This week, even though I've been trying to rein things in a little bit with myself, I've still averaged 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers, which is on the thirstier side. Now, if you're looking for a more traditional non-turbo V6, you're out of luck here in the Mazda 6. Same goes for the Honda Accord and its redesign. And a lot of people who are loyal to the Accord were disappointed about that. If you're looking for a V6 and you want to go old school and stick with these mainstream Japanese brands, at this point, really your only bet is the Toyota Camry. And then speaking of getting away from the old school, also for 2018, there's no more stick option in the Mazda 6. Instead, it's a 6-speed automatic right across the board, with paddle shifters though on the GSL trim and up. And I have to say, I've been using these paddle shifters quite a bit this week because this car goes through the twisties really beautifully. It has G vectoring control, which gives you far better control and cornering feel. It also means that you get tossed around less here in the cabin, and it's got liquid-filled dampers now for a slightly more plush ride feel too. But if you are coming from a more cruisy SUV, you might find the suspension just a little bit rough here in the Mazda 6. The payoff, though, is a car that is really quite exciting to drive, and certainly far more than most SUVs on the market, and that's what Mazda says they're going for here. Drivers who want more of an engaging driving experience than the typical SUV or minivan. And I should say it's pretty quiet in here too. Mazda's piled on additional noise insulation for 2018. They've also increased the thickness of the sheet metal they're using. And the result is a car that, again, puts it easily into luxury territory. We're measuring 62 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour, and those are the kind of numbers that you'd expect to see in a BMW or a Volvo. And honestly, when it comes to the interior experience on this car, I really can't say enough about it. Mazda has been home running the cabins on its cars lately, and the Mazda 6 is no different. For 2018, the dash, the climate control functions, the instrument panel, the center console have all been redone, and it really does feel so much more high-end and well-considered than anything else in this class. Even when you compare this to the Accord, which I think has a great interior as well. The real metal inlays all through the cabin, the real metal door handles, the plastics that Mazda is using, the feel of the switchware, everything just feels solid. Seat comfort in both the front and rear is also improved for 2018. I'd say it aligns more with the European style, you know, a bit firmer. The chestnut color here that we have in this car as well is new for 2018. You can also get white leather, which is a terrible idea. I've heard from people before who bought white leather seats. You know, they're super clean people, they don't have kids, and even still, just the dyes in their clothes wipe off on the seats and they're really tough to keep clean. And on that note, while I do like this ultra suede throughout the cabin in this top trim, it's also way more difficult to wipe down if you've got grubby hands smearing, you know, who knows what into it. And that would probably have me leaning toward the GT trim because it would be just a bit easier to keep clean. By the way, if you do have kids in the back all the time, the second row has better cushioning for 2018, and the seats are also in a less upright position, which is going to be more comfortable for them too. We also have heated rear seats, as I mentioned, coming as standard for 2018 in the back, as well as 2 USB outlets in the center armrest. So it's a pretty nice place to be, if not, you know, maybe a little bit cramped. This car is in the middle when it comes to rear legroom. It has slightly more than the Camry or the Optima, but the new Accord second row is damn near limo-like, and it really does walk away with second row comfort in this class. In terms of car seats, there's plenty of room back there for front-facing kids, and again, we're seeing middle-of-the-pack results for rear-facing car seats. We're measuring out 28 inches from the back of the front passenger seat cushion up to the glove box, but I really do like the easy access anchor points for installing car seats here in the Mazda 6. The company has just been nailing safety benchmarks lately, and this new spin on the 6 is no different. It has a top Safety Pick Plus rating from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. But speaking of safety, if you want the peace of mind of all-wheel drive for cruising around in Canadian winters, it's not an option here in the Mazda 6. Your only choice is front-wheel drive. Now back at the trunk, 416 liters of space puts it slightly behind all of its competitors. It's not a huge vacuous boot, but it is enough to fit our standardized trunk test: a stroller, a diaper bag, backpack, a couple bags of groceries, and a soccer ball. But I gotta say, I'm bummed that this car is no longer available in the Canadian market as a wagon. It got taken away a number of years ago. It gives you that extra bit of utility, and the new version that's available in the European market looks absolutely killer. So I asked Mazda Canada if there would ever be any chance that they'd bring the wagon back to the Canadian market, and it wasn't an outright no. So for those of us who like the extra utility, who like the look of wagons, I guess we can dream. So the Mazda 6 does have some niggly things that have irritated me this week. The convoluted infotainment system, a grainy backup camera, but this is all pretty small stuff when you compare it to the big picture of this car. These new trim choices mean that there's an option that can work for pretty much everyone, from the value-minded shopper to the luxury buyer. So if you want a car that's gorgeous to look at, fun to drive, safe, and just a little bit different from the rest of the competition out there, don't forget about the Mazda 6. And next time I see you on the channel, we're looking at European luxury with a review of BMW's powerhouse sedan, the latest spin on the 5 Series. You can check that out a week from now, right here on Family Wheels.